Well, welcome back to Night School. I'm Jessie Zand.
I'm Alana Cloud Robinson.
I'm Izzy Hunter. And who are you?
I'm Kenny Scharf.
First, our interviewer. Also, Kenny has been so absolutely welcoming to us and to his home. We're super excited to be here. This is our first out-of-studio podcast as well.
Field trip.
Field trip.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. Field trip for us.
Right on.
No one's ever let us into their house. So
It's just easier for
you.
me. All I care about is my ease.
Honestly, you could have told us that you wanted us to go to Mount Everest. I would have been like, all right,
we'll do
let
it.
me know your dates.
I don't think anyone should go to Mount Everest, not to the summit. That's just like,
There's too much garbage anyway.
and dead
bodies, yeah.
Like, I want to go to base camp so I can see all the psychos who go up and like on the way. Because the
True.
base camp's like just a really, really hard
It's good
hike.
people
I bet.
watching. Yeah.
And they have like tea houses. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to camp out in
Isn't
in,
it like
oxygen.
16,000 feet alone, the base camp?
Yes, 17, I
That's a
think.
little too high for me.
There is not an amount of
I've
money you could pay me
Never.
to do that shit.
No, me neither.
Absolutely
I don't
not. That's white people shit. It's not happening. I'm not
Yeah,
doing
that's
it.
true. It
I'm not
really
doing
is
it.
white people
I'm
shit.
not doing it. You're out of your
It's
fucking
like
mind.
white
you looked at me
Europeans.
to
confirm that it's white
I
people.
can confirm.
It's white people.
That's not something
you would
I
not do Everest?
No one in my family would ever do that. No.
Confirmed. White people shit.
No way, no how.
Do you believe that an artist or a creative has to be a little crazy?
Oh. I think a little crazy always makes things a little more interesting.
Yeah, certainly.
So I would hope so.
I
It goes
think
with
so,
territory.
too.
It's almost like a mode of therapy for crazies.
That's how I feel when I'm making art. I feel less crazy. I feel like there's
course.
like a purpose in my crazy almost.
You gotta get it out.
That's how I feel about stand-up.
Mhm.
There's no way.
Get it out.
Get it out. So comedy has such an influence in your work. There's so much humor injected into so much of your work. And I was wondering, what are
Thank
some
you.
of your favorite comedies, comedians across any genre or that inspire you?
My dad and my grandparents had a hotel in the Catskills, and my dad and my uncle were the entertainment. So it was the Borscht Belt, where all those comedians, New York comedians, so they learned shtick. So I grew up, my dad was always doing his shtick. So I've always had that kind of, it's a very Jewish thing, the Borscht Belt and all
Yeah.
that kind of humor. And that was when my dad was like the most fun, when he was doing his shtick. I think that definitely had something to do with why I keep shticking in my painting.
What about now? What is there anything that within comedy that inspires you now?
I think Jim Carrey is, and that's a good mix with the artist, because Jim Carrey's an
Yeah,
awesome artist.
he's a painter. Yeah.
I went to visit a studio.
Oh, really? Tell us about that.
Well, he's making paintings like crazy,
Wow.
and I love Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah.
Look at this painting, and he wanted me to kind of help him just talk about art, and so I saw this painting, and I was like, kind of reminds me of this artist Sigmar Polka, who's a great artist, and I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me. I said, you should check out Sigmar Polka's work, and he said, I don't want to see any other artists because I don't want to be influenced. And I thought, God, like, that's ridiculous. I mean, to become this incredible comedian, obviously he studied everyone that came before him.
Yeah, and he's also a known imitator.
Of course,
Yeah.
he wanted like to be in the art world, but you need to know a little bit before, like, and he was like, and sometimes people have this attitude with art, is like, I don't want to know anything.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you want to get into, let's say, the world, then you really
You
need
should
to
know the references.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
you should know the
canon.
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
grandfather was educating
Yeah,
all the
was.
art students.
he was.
That's what was the book I read.
Was it really?
Of course,
Modern
that's what
art?
they gave you.
Well, you know you're in it.
Well, maybe a newer
A
one,
newer
not the
version.
one that I read. Yeah,
Towards the end of it,
How
when
cool.
they added.
I love that.
It's really cool. Yeah,
That's important.
You even have a picture of your art in there.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. I
and
didn't
it's
know that.
very cool for my mom because it's kind of like her life intersecting.
Is that an '80s version?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I
The
need
one
to
with
get
the
that.
Warhol on the cover.
I need to get that.
Kenny and my mom have been friends since they were 20,
Mhm.
early 20s. They met in New York in downtown, along with, other friends who were down there. I mean, and they were both part of Club 57, which has been now memorialized by the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They had a big show in 2017. Club 57 was in the basement of a church, and it was all these youngsters. It was before, any of you guys were famous, Keith, Jean-Michel, Anne. And it was just a place for like fun. It was almost like Dadaist, I
very
would say.
much.
Very Dadaist, very inspired by the
Yes.
surrealists and Dadaists.
Also, the Warhol Factory,
Yes, but it was
which was
like,
also inspired by surrealists and dolls too.
Yes. But it was so much more raw than the Warhol Factory.
We were more like silly.
Silly. That's
Yeah.
the word I'm looking for.
We
Chewy,
were
silly.
like, let's put on a show
Yeah.
and like song and dance. They
You
weren't
as
doing
Lawrence
that.
Welk.
Yeah, I was Lawrence Welk.
Oh, yeah.
We saw it in
You
the
saw that?
documentary.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was so high. during that.
On what?
Quaaludes.
I'm so jealous. I've always
Honestly,
wanted
same.
to try a crazy.
It was
Quaalude.
sick how high I was.
Oh, to be Kenny Scharf on stage, high on Quaaludes,
Quaaludes.
dancing
As Lawrence Welk.
In
Lawrence Welk
1980.
in 1980.
Speaking of Club 57 too, we all actually sat down and watched a documentary together that
Oh, you
your
did?
lovely daughter did. Yes. And I wanted to hear a little bit about, in your own words, it sounds like you spoke to it a little bit, about the performances that you guys did during Club 57.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, back in the late 70s, everyone thought kind of like all these kids that were arriving, by bus, by plane, by train, like, with a dream, with a suitcase and like, I want to be this or that. A lot of them ended up down in the East Village. It was cheap. And that's where all the kids were. So that's where all the fun was. And so all these young artists are there together at the same time with these huge aspirations and reinventing themselves, I guess, from their other selves, and letting their freak flags fly. Because basically, New York was the place where all the freaks could go to let the flags fly and be celebrated for that instead of being castigated back wherever they were from.
Yeah.
So there's amazing energy and all these kids together, and everyone's like, I don't know, like, let's put on a show. So we had like singers making paintings, painters singing. Everyone was in a rock and roll band. Everybody was making a painting. It was like everything was all mixed up. There wasn't any definition. So it was pretty fun because, I was an art student with my huge art world painting, sculpture aspirations, but also I was go-go dancing and I was singing and, we were just being the hams and having a great time.
Do you feel like it's really important for artists to have that play where it's not necessarily serious?
For me, it's the most important because I want to have fun when I'm doing what I do. And, I have a lot of opinions, obviously, about art in general. But,
I would love to hear them. Spill
well,
the
what I
tea.
hate most is art that is pretentious.
Yes.
Art that is saying, I am so important. This is so like serious what I'm doing. And like everyone has their own way of doing things. And I think everything should be allowed. But I really don't like when things get real pretentious. And I just want to like, don't take yourself so seriously because you are just a person. And no matter how great you are, it's not worth thinking you're such great shit. Just do great shit and make it great, but you're not so great. Yeah. So I've seen enough egos
Yeah.
I'm
in my
sure.
life. I grew up here and I went to Beverly Hills High School, so I had all that celebrity thing
Yes,
around.
celebrity
as a kid.
worship.
And I hit me early, like, I don't like that
Yeah.
celebrity worship shit. I want people to be celebrated for like, not for how they look only. Like, I really think it's important to have something to go with
Yeah.
whatever you're bringing.
Yeah.
And this whole celebrity of like, let's celebrate, the Kardashians because they're shoppers. Like, that is the lowest cultural point so far,
is.
I think, of
It's-
pop history. Worship,
us.
like, let's say rock and roll stars. Yeah. Well, at least they had something going on.
Yeah.
That, and not just
You're
like
creating something.
they have good plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Like, that's not to aspire to.
Well, entertainment has gotten so simplistic that
Yeah.
what we, put value into, what entertains us,
Is watching people
has
say
become
stupid
so
stuff.
simplistic.
Yeah.
And I've said before on this podcast, and I won't go back on this. I do watch a lot of reality TV.
You do.
Because
Yeah,
I
we
find it
do.
really interesting because it's sort of, you get a snapshot into the common man these days.
Yeah.
I think we certainly you as
It's pretty
well.
vapid. Is it not?
It is, but it's interesting because we're surrounded. I'm happy to be surrounded by people who are interesting and who are artists and who think a certain way.
Creative people.
But I don't, it's interesting when you look into sort of what the rest of the culture is up to these days.
Well, it's
I find it very
sad.
fascinating. It is sad a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It
They don't
really
have a
is.
lot. If they don't look for stuff, what's right in front of most people is not very good.
No.
It's true.
So you really have to look for stuff
Yeah.
these days because everything that's placed in front of you.
Yeah,
It's
the
true.
references that I talked about this in a past episode, like the references that people use because of the internet are so
Yeah.
recycled that it's
Yeah.
like nobody
Yeah.
picks up art books
No one knows
anymore.
history.
Nobody knows history. Do you have any advice for young artists who are?
Well, I just said
Yeah.
learn history. I know a lot of artists and even people that are like curators and stuff. You'd be surprised how
horrible.
little they know of art history. And I just think it's really important.
How do you feel about art right now at the moment? Like what you've been seeing in galleries and
It's hard to
shows.
comment about that
Yeah.
because like for instance, when I started up in, let's say, showing in galleries in the
Mhm.
80s, the art world was minuscule compared to what it is now. There was like
Yeah.
10 great galleries in New York. And it was all based on this art historical movements, and everything had a connection
reactions
to the history, which was very chronicled by your grandpa.
He was part of that.
And now there's a lot of art worlds now. You have
Yeah.
the art world, that the one that I feel like I belong to, that I want to belong to, which is part of the history of modern art, basically,
You are.
into contemporary. But now there's everything. I don't know. It's just like it's become.
It is hard to compartmentalize
Yeah.
and even like look at it in a way that's organized.
There's so
because
many
it's
different kinds. There's like an
all
art
over the
world
place.
of like
NFT art, like
NFT
it's
art. Let's
too
say
much.
what's his the one who Thomas Kincaid. Like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
that art world. That's a
Mhm.
huge art world. People
Yeah.
loving that stuff. And then of course there's I don't want to mention names. So.
No, mention them.
But there's other kinds of artists that are more
Who, Jeff Koons? I
made-
hate him.
made for the masses to easily digest
Yes.
without anything, in my opinion. There's nothing inside
Mhm.
other than the surface. But
It's kind of about what looks good. What I feel like a lot of people just want to like shock, just have aesthetic pleasure, or pander to the market. I'm a shit
Honestly,
talker.
in defense a little bit of the pandering to the market, we are living in
That's
a
true.
crazy age of consumerism.
Yes.
Where
Yes.
it is a lot of pressure for artists to create in a
Sellable
way
things.
sellable things.
Monetize.
Well, everyone
I
needs-
completely understand
everyone
it.
needs to
Yeah.
live.
Everyone
Yeah.
needs to live.
Everyone needs
Yeah.
to pay
Yeah.
their bills.
And it's become very apparent what sells. So people do,
Mhm.
even myself, I'm a writer, and sometimes I can see the path forward if I just tailor things a little bit more towards the taste, the flavors of the moment.
Mhm.
And it's
I
hard.
understand
Yeah,
that. That's a
totally.
survival mode. But if you really want to achieve the greatness, you can't ever let the thoughts of what is going to be right commercially get into
Yeah.
that thing, because it'll ruin it.
Yeah.
It'll absolutely destroy it. So I have young artists that ask me a lot, like, oh, how do I get a gallery? How do I, and I'm like, that's not what you should be occupying your mind with. How do I make the greatest fucking
Yeah.
thing that ever came out of me? And then that should follow. So a lot of artists I see today, they're very successful, but I look at them more and I call them careerists.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's more about their career
Yeah.
than, I'm definitely an artist that throughout my career wanted success, but I think I've managed to navigate while I'm in creative process, never to let those thoughts enter my brain, because I find they just take away
Certainly.
from the real creation that you're there for in the first place. So I understand careerists. It's exciting to have a career and to fly over the world and be celebrated, but I think art really is about the long run, the
Yeah.
bigger picture.
And integrity too. It is, because you might have that incredible career, but if you're looking back on a body of work that doesn't reflect who you really are. It's probably a really,
It's not real.
Yeah,
it's not going to
yeah.
last.
It's probably a dark feeling too to look back on that, even if you have all the success and you're like, this isn't me.
Yeah, there wasn't
You
like
know?
a source for that inspiration.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
like a
everything is like the
real-
test of time.
Yeah.
So I really do believe that the real quality stands the test of time, and the other things fall down eventually. We're talking a long history, and of course, there's a lot of artists that are fantastic, and they never have any success whatsoever, and no one ever
Oh yeah.
knows about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the harsh realities of this
Well,
world.
some artists, a lot of artists are not naturally good at like networking and all that. I think
It's hard.
it's really hard. That's actually like a huge thing. You either have to
Marketing,
like
yeah.
adapt or, you know, be around people who are better than at that than you, who
Or do it
who
for you.
champion- Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, when I was young, it was a lot easier. Not
Yeah. Well,
not easier because it's still hard to talk to people who don't want to talk to you in these situations. But it was easier because there was only 3 choices of
Yeah.
who was not going to talk to you.
Yes.
Now, how
it's
do
a
you even know who you
Yeah.
should talk to that won't talk to you?
But what part of the creative process do you find the most frustrating?
Frustrating? Well, when you have to depend on other people for anything.
Preach.
And do you mean in the sense of like getting your art out in the world? Do you mean it in the technical sense? I mean, you're doing all your paintings yourself, so I
Yeah.
assume it's more.
So that's the ultimate freedom. I have me and my hand and the painting, and I do whatever I want, and that's ultimate. But I did an animation once for Cartoon Network, and after that whole experience, I was like, it was a disaster. By the way, I went into debt because they paid me
made you-
nothing.
Oh.
And they aired it once, and then they never spoke to me again, and I don't own it. After that experience, I was just like, oh God, because every single little thing I did on that cartoon was like, had to get the okay. Had to send it to this guy, and he had to, okay, yeah, give it the stamp. Okay, now we can go to the next.
In your earlier career, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but collaboration was a big part of your early career with Keith, right? Like when you guys lived together, that was a huge. So talk to me a little bit about how important collaboration was for you in your early career and how it's evolved.
Well, collaboration, I'd say the most collaborative art making, besides, let's say, performing, which is very collaborative, but actually mark making would be making paintings in the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're always adding to something else.
Right.
So that whole scene is a collaboration.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of that.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, I'm every time, you're looking at the whole picture and where you want to fit in,
Yeah.
and you don't want to cover somebody, and it's a whole thing, and it's a whole group of
It's an ecosystem.
Communication.
Right.
Of everyone who was there, and people you recognize and don't know, and new people, and it's interesting and full of art and flair, and I find it fascinating. But as far as like straight up collaboration, I've only collaborated very few times. Keith Haring, Ed Richey, and then of course people that all the great graffiti artists, whatever, hitting a refrigerator together or things like that. But
Yeah.
I'm not really a collaborator. It's just me. Yeah.
Well, you do collaborate on some fashion products.
Oh, fashion.
That's different.
Oh, that's
obviously.
different, yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
But what was your experience with going from like, because you sold merch pretty early, and I'm wearing Kenny Scharf pants. These are recent.
Well,
but-
those aren't merch. Those are one of a kinds.
Ooh.
So
Okay,
those are
Dairy
hand
Eye.
silk screen. Yeah.
Hear
and those
that?
were never for sale. Those were just
Gifts only.
one of the
Thank
many
you, Mom.
outfits that we wore for the Cosmic Cavern parties.
Icon.
We want another Cosmic Cavern party.
Please.
We have to
Please.
have a Cosmic Cavern to do that. I've been working for years to like get into the museum world. So I
Nice.
finally had a really great show recently, and I'm having another one in China in June, and
Wow.
another one in Spain, and so they're all starting to come. Finally,
Like the big museums.
that I've been waiting
Yeah.
for.
I mean, as you were saying, it takes years, it takes decades for you to reach
Some people
those
it does. Some
heights.
people get instant. Well, actually, I had a big notoriety very, very young,
Very young, yes.
as you saw in the film.
Yeah.
Of course.
And then it was like, sorry, we don't really like you. Try to survive on your own. Goodbye. And then it was like, so I'm back.
Wait, this is a total non sequitur, but I heard that you know a lot of theme songs to TV shows.
Every single one.
You know Land of the Lost?
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I
Every
remember
song.
the show though.
Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition.
Okay.
That's the greatest earthquake ever known. So I loved all those, and I remember
love that.
when I was seeing that you were really inspired by.
You don't
all
know
those
My
shows.
Mother the Car, do you?
No, I don't. But when I heard that, I was like, "That's amazing!" I loved all those theme tunes. Green Acres, love
Green Acres is a place for me. Far living is a life for me. Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, but give me the countryside. New York is where I'd rather stay. I get allergic smelling hay. I just adore a penthouse view. Darling, I love you, but give me Park Avenue. Times Square. Fresh air. Fresh air. Times Square.
I'm hot right now.
You are my wife. Goodbye, city life. Green Acres, we are there. Great.
So, in your early career in New York, were there any people on the scene that were really influential or supportive of you that history might not know about?
A lot of people don't know who Klaus Nomi was. So
That's a
Klaus
shame.
Nomi, unfortunately, he was one of the first people to die of AIDS before AIDS had a name. But he was this, I don't know, otherworldly character.
I'll Google him for you guys. Really quick.
It was this otherworldly character that roamed the streets and our haunts, the nightclubs and areas, and you know, when I first saw him, I was like struck. I saw him in the street. I was like, "What? Who?" I was like, "What the hell?" And then I'd see him. And then I saw him a couple more times, and I started talking to him, and he was very nice, and I was just fascinating with him, just the way he looked. And then I saw him perform, and then I was completely blown away. He was like nothing else as anyone's ever seen or heard. Right? It defied any kind of anything that we knew. It wasn't punk rock. It wasn't. It had no. Didn't fit anywhere. You know. But every time he would sing, especially this one aria, Samson and Delilah, everybody would be like in shock, and it would be over, and there's silence. We're talking about like punk rock nightclubs and shit. And then one day I walked really early, about 1979. I walked into the store called Fiorucci, fashion store / nightclub, daytime disco, basically. We were walked in, and this great, wonderful entertainer, well, he is now an entertainer, Joey Arias, character person,
Iconic.
was working at Fiorucci, and he just kind of like jumped on us, and I didn't know it, but Joey was good friends with Klaus.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I knew, Joey and Klaus came to my apartment. I showed them my paintings, and they cut my hair into the Nomi cut and shaved my eyebrows off and all that stuff. And the next thing I knew, I was on stage at Max's Kansas City and at Hurrah and in all these different nightclubs behind Klaus on stage. So it was an incredible moment for me when I arrived in New York, and literally like a month later, I was on stage at these venues
Amazing.
and behind Klaus. So that was kind of amazing.
I have a little pivot. You are a champion of the environment. You hate plastic. You love using plastic in your art.
Well, I use it because it's
recycling
free.
it.
It's
Yes.
everywhere. It's full of
We have too
colors.
much
It
of
doesn't
it.
degrade. And hey, and what everything I hate about is why it's a good art material.
These days, a lot of the defacing of art
Oh,
and
right.
like, has been about the environment.
You're right.
And your thoughts
on these
Well,
eco-terrorist
I'm not a
acts defacing art.
proponent of vandalizing art, but also, what else are we gonna do?
Yeah.
People, we're fucking dying, and I don't understand why people don't
planets-
care.
No, people just don't.
And
I think they
I-
think we don't have any power. And
Well, it feels powerless because the people that are causing it and profiting are in charge. So, I grew up I was born in the 50s, so the beginning of this kind of nuclear mindset. as a kid, we have regularly these drills. Everybody, cover your neck and go into your desk. Like my fears of not only nuclear, because there's nothing really we can prepare for that, but like the whole environmental thing has been kind of my ongoing theme as well. And to watch all my fears come true while I'm still alive is, wow, it's really terrible. I've been screaming and whatever, raising money, trying to have the Don't Bungle the Jungle. I had rainforest benefits back when no one really knew the rainforests were burning or why that was a problem. And I'm not saying I should get a medal or anything. I'm just saying that these have been these themes as far as plastic. So I had a show back in the 80s of all this plastic beach garbage that I found in the beach in Brazil. And I made all these, you saw the crazy constructions out of them. So when I had the show back in the 80s, I didn't sell anything. And people pretty much didn't like it at all. Didn't get it. It was just weird. And now, when they look at them now, unfortunately, everybody immediately understands them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
now when I'm reading the latest news about the nanoplastics in our brains, the microplastics have broken down into such small pieces that they're now able to pass through all of our membranes. So they say that in each of our human brains, there's equivalent of 7 bottle caps worth of plastic in your brain. Okay? And the scary thing is, first of all, we're not slowing down on plastic use, production, all of that. All that nanoplastics that is going in our brain now, that's from 50 years ago.
Great.
And the amount of plastic from 50 years was
Nothing.
Nothing
Yeah,
compared to
amazing.
now. And next year it's double. And the year after that it's double. And this, I think people should be freaking out.
Kind of brings me to another question, which is like there's this theme of nuclear holocaust and destruction in a lot of your work. And I was gonna ask you, what would you tell some of the young artists now who are feeling a real fatalistic sense looking out at the world around us? How would you encourage us to sort of keep going and to produce something, create something from that place? Because it was obviously a very intense time and you still created so much incredible art.
Well, even when they're fatalistic, the good thing about youth is optimism. So despite all of the information that I know for a fact, I'm still optimistic because otherwise I would just kill myself right now. No, seriously. That's how I feel.
I feel the same exact way.
I have to. In fact, everyone thinks that I'm like the happiest person in the world because my paintings have colors and I tell people, no, I'm trying not to kill myself.
I think Salvador Dali's underrated.
Oh,
Overrated. Yes. Sorry.
I was going to say I have I have a Salvador Dali crucifix in the bedroom. It's really
Ooh.
scary.
That sounds scary. I like some of his work, but some of it I detest so much.
Dali?
Dali. There's the bust.
Well,
with
it's
the
very
flies.
gross.
It's gross.
But he's not underrated. I don't think.
No, I
No,
meant
she said
overrated.
I don't think
I
he's
meant
overrated either.
You think
Do you think he's
I think-
properly rated?
Well, I think actually he took a real dive. What happened was he was on top of the world. And then when he got very, very old, he pretty much ruined his career, his market, because all his people around him brought him blank sheets of paper and he just signed them. And then they
Oh.
made prints and just got him to sign it. So he kind of flooded his market with not good prints. But the thing that was cool about Dali, he was one of those artists that, like Warhol, who took on the whole thing, which I love, that art and life and the artists are all the same.
Yeah.
It's not just,
That's
I'm an
true.
artist and I make things for the wall. It's like, my life is art.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really cool about Dali.
It used to be really authentic too. It's funny because I think there are people that try to attempt that these days, but in a way that's extremely performative.
Mhm.
And I miss that energy when artists used to embody their art. 'Cause
Dolly
now,
was
whenever
such a-
you know what I mean,
Yeah,
it's like
no
when
one
people do it,
can-
it's like it's the
Performative.
it's a performance of it,
Yes.
but it doesn't feel like, you know, when they're all alone, they're actually living in that
No.
experience.
Yeah, right.
No,
And
Dolly
it's sad
so
that we
was
don't
that.
have that anymore.
Yeah.
The crucifixion I have on my wall is like, I bought it without telling my boyfriend when he came home. I like having a little bit of religious iconography in my bedroom. And I was looking for the perfect piece. And
Well,
I
they
found
have that painting in the St. Peter in the museum. In
It's
St.
beautiful.
Petersburg,
It's really interesting because it's
Was
like
this like an omen to scare Frank? Like,
No, I don't mean to scare him. I bring all the art into the home. And, you know, I like to collect clowns too.
That's scary.
Yeah,
I
I like
love
having
Me
a
too.
theme. I used to have
But yeah, scary.
in my old apartment. I had a theme that the bathroom was all comedy and clowns. So I had like an old print of the Three Stooges and like a ebony magazine with Richard Pryor, and then clowns, because I liked the idea that any man that came into the bathroom that was peeing was being laughed at by all the clowns. in the
hilarious.
room.
But not the woman.
No, she's facing away.
yeah.
You know.
And Izzy went to clown school.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did go to clown school. And
Yeah.
you're one of your best friends
Yeah,
is a
is a clown
professional
teacher.
Oh, that's incredible.
Oh, my friend who grew up with Stephen Aves.
I mean, we've already said this before, but we met up in Paris when she was doing clown school, and she was describing to me the emotional abuse that she was sustaining at these,
And you
in
were
these
warned.
classes. And she
Oh,
was
yeah.
Stephen warn
no,
you?
but
No,
she was telling me about it with a smile on her
Yeah.
face, and she has
It's
the
the most
most
pleasurable
has
abuse
the-
I've ever encountered.
she has the disposition for clowning.
Yeah.
I do.
Just being ridiculed and like you're
Yeah.
doing it all wrong, and she was like, okay.
It's funny because she used to tell me like your skin, you need to have thicker skin. Like I took that so seriously.
You have
my
the
skin
thickest
is
skin.
so thick right now. I think like probably nothing could penetrate it. Not
I was
even,
getting
a
like
blade.
secondhand
Well, then you could be an
anxiety.
actress.
Yeah.
And you're a comedian?
I'm a stand-up. Yeah.
So you have thick skin,
Oh,
obviously.
absolutely.
yeah.
I have had some of the most horrific bombs,
I'm
like
sure.
back sweat inducing, like moments where you
Not the back
actually
sweat.
want to reinvert into your own
Time
asshole.
is going real slow.
Oh, it's so slow.
Yeah.
It's
TikTok.
as if you've died and there is no rest. Like it's
Purgatory.
purgatory. Yeah. I also feel like too, like for stand up, for me at least, and at least in my art, like it is a cathartic thing to be able to take rejection to your face in real time.
Yeah. It does.
You no longer fear failure when failure is quite literally at every corner and reminding you constantly you're shit. And it keeps you humble, it keeps you hungry. And I think that that's when I look at like famous comedians that I find have almost like plateaued in their career, it's because they don't have their flops anymore. They don't have failures.
Yeah.
And their audiences are coming out to see them, and they aren't able to really work out material because they've built in this audience that's going to laugh at whatever they say.
But what about, like, I find, like, okay, so a lot of aspiring creatives, they get treated really bad,
Mm-hmm.
and then they finally get their foot in the door, and what do? They treat everyone else really bad.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's the system of abuse, right? It seems like that is the modus operandi in Hollywood. Is like
Yeah.
you get treated so bad, and then I got treated like that too. So
It
that's
almost
what you
becomes
get.
it's funny because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, actually, because I feel like that kind of elitism has almost become a form of social currency when people act like they're loftier than others, better
Yeah.
than others. And even just watching the documentary, we were all just really struck by, you really are just a man of the people.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
Thank you.
ask you how you have avoided, or how you, not even how you've avoided, because it's very clear you're a really amazing person, but how have you dealt with that currency and not, you know, without having that yourself, of being cruel to others as a way to show your power, your dominance, your worth?
I don't know. I just, as I said, growing up, and when I was moved from the Valley, parents were like, "We're moving to Beverly Hills. You're going to Beverly Hills High," and that's kind of when I first touched with like the celebrity world. Like a lot of the students were children of celebs, but I kind of like gave me a bad taste because like my school in the Valley where I grew up was kind of hippie, and it was like anti-consumerism. that kind of 60s mentality. And then all of a sudden I arrived there and it was like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, this and Mercedes. Like I had never seen that kind of labeling thing and this kind of, which is so Kardashianly popular, but that was what I'd never seen that before. And it just made me sick. And I was not interested in it. And I just kind of had disdain for like people with labels.
When you see it that close, obsession with fame and
Yeah.
money, it really does. It is like disgusting when you see people fawning over celebrities or like
And
just
the whole
feels-
thing,
ugh.
like everyone's into like talking about nepotism.
Oh my
And
God.
I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just really not fair how some people have it so easy. The doors are wide open and maybe they're not very talented and then other people are like amazing, have a million things to offer, but they're not getting any door
I
cracked
think
open.
nepotism really took a crazy swing where it was like people became so obsessed that they were like seeking out celebrities' children just to take photos of them.
Because they're
And-
already famous.
Yeah, exactly. And
They
they
don't
might
ha-
look like their parents.
Yes, and then like, they already have the name thing, which is will
And these-
draw people to go to see their show because they have the
But these
fame.
kids are, a lot of them are kind of screwed because unless you really find your creative practice, like they're not going to create anything, super noteworthy.
I will say though, when they're good, I do think it is like when someone really rises and it's very
It's not fair
clear,
to
Totally.
castigate
It's-
them just because of that either.
Well, I think
Totally.
there is something really like, even think of like Gwyneth Paltrow, her mother's Blythe Danner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you look at the two of them, someone who successfully really earned their stripes. And then it becomes a very beautiful legacy, in a way
Yeah.
where you get to see like, wow, look at this lineage of actors. But it is sad when people get pushed into certain positions when they haven't necessarily earned that. But I do have respect for those that
Take it and do
that really
something good
take
with
it
it.
seriously
Yeah.
and really
course.
lean on and
I'm not
Kate
saying
Hudson
everyone
even.
is-
Yeah.
No.
But I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
saying it's unfair how
Yeah.
some people are, how hard it is to get in
Yeah.
a world if you're not already in it.
No, it's so true. I just had to speak up for, my Nepo babies.
Yeah. Yeah. You got some
Me-
Nepo babies. Look, we love Nepo.
Me included.
Yeah.
Me included.
Not all Nepo babies are undeserving or don't work hard.
Nepo baby.
Yeah.
Art-
The
art-
art,
art
art
Nepo
Nepo
baby.
baby. Sorry,
baby,
a little
Nepo
Nepo
baby,
grand
Nepo
baby right
baby.
here.
Yeah.
So,
Say
We
it,
start chanting
yeah,
it
say
out.
it 4 times and
Nepo baby.
Gwyneth Paltrow appears covered in goop.
yeah, I think doors can open, but if you can it is always impressive when you see someone who's like really good.
But how have you, back to Alana's question, how now in your career, like you were just saying earlier, like you're getting the recognition you've so long deserved after there was a slight lull, and it's so exciting to see too, even just in the brief time that I've been in Izzy's life too, getting to see, your art, it's almost it's inescapable in the best way. I'm seeing it everywhere all the time now.
Thanks.
How do you feel about having this recognition and success now later in your life? Do you feel like, yes, this is coming right exactly at the right time? Or is there, or do you have any sort of like, man, this should have come sooner after the
There's
80s?
one aspect that I wish it had come earlier, which is having to travel all around the world all the time. Because when I was young, I could love it. Get me to the airport. Oh, I have to go there, and again. Oh, it's great. I'm on that plane, whatever. Now, forget it. I hate airports. I hate the whole thing. I don't want to go. Being in weird hotels, and I've gotten kind of crotchety old where I just am really into my house and my studio and my routine. I don't want anything to take me away from it because I really carved out what is working for me. I'm just very grateful that all these years, even though there were many years, a decade at least, where I felt unrecognized or cast off, or I was having a hard time paying bills and whatnot, but I still didn't need to do anything else. Like I still managed a way, even though I was undervalued, but I had enough. Even sometimes it was bartering, but I managed through my art to get through it all. I'm one of those artists that does the work myself. I don't have assistants. A lot of artists will have, a bunch of assistants, and they're off at some party.
Yeah,
and
I don't know if you guys knew that. A lot of artists have their assistants like basically like paint a lot for them and like prep paintings and like even paint
A
them.
lot of it
Do
is
a lot
like
of the
paint by
work.
numbers in a way.
Yeah.
And they get other
Wow.
people to do it
Isn't
for
that
them.
cheating?
Well,
Yeah.
there's no rules and everything is
Yeah.
valid, but I choose to do it myself because I believe the touch is the important thing.
Right.
And
the strokes.
when I see art made by other people, it doesn't have that warmth and that soul.
Yeah.
And that's what I react to. And that's the art that I want to give. And that's the art that I respond to.
I'm just going to shoot out a question that I had, which is you have painted many cars. You've even painted a plane designed by Jackie O. What's left? What is on your wish list of something you have not painted but would love to?
Well, a spaceship would be good.
That's what I was going to guess. What do you think of space travel?
Although the plane that I did, to be real, is in a boneyard. The boneyard is
know.
where planes go to die.
Yeah.
But it is true that Jackie O, it was Air Force One plane that so the presidents would fly Air Force One, but they were military planes. She was like, no. I want it to be like more elegant, like a commercial. So she designed with, I can't remember the designer, but like, the seats and the colors. And that was the plane that I painted.
Spaceship is on your dream canvas wish list.
It'd be cool.
NASA, if you're listening.
Elon, we're sorry.
No,
I'm
no.
kidding.
We won't.
I'll take
Joke.
Jeff Bezos' dick rocket, even though
Yeah, his blue origin.
Blue Origin dick rocket.
it's so disgusting, these guys, but
To me, space exploration,
it's,
I don't get it.
well, I'm like this. I don't want to live on Mars. Can we
no.
just live
We
here?
can't breathe on Mars. Why would
Can
anyone
we
want to live
fix
there?
this before we
Yeah,
go
if you
try
want to go to
fuck
Mars,
something
fine.
else?
But like, let's try to deal with this
Yeah.
here because I know Mars is not going to be as nice as here.
No.
You can't
No,
breathe, for God's
You can't
sake.
breathe there. That's a pretty important aspect.
Why do you want to live somewhere where you're going to be like inside all day long? You can't go outside. You have to be indoors all day. Yuck.
And all
We're
the youth vapes, like they're not going to survive on Mars. If you can't breathe and you're vaping, like
That's true.
you're all going to roll around on oxygen. Like
We're becoming so divorced from our humanity, though, because we've become obsessed with, colonizing other planets and transhumanism. We don't want to
Yeah.
be human, and we don't want to live here.
Well, I love it here and I
Me
want to
too.
stay.
I
Me
want to be
too.
human,
I
and
love
I want to live
nature.
here.
I love
And
our
I don't
planet.
want it over because some rich person doesn't care.
What? I know this is like trying to pick your favorite child, but
Mm.
if you had to, what is the one piece of art that you look back on that you are the most proud of that you've created?
I don't know because I'm hoping that it is
Yet to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not slowing down or anything.
That's incredible.
no.
Yeah.
Kenny, I don't know if we've established this. I know you said you have a routine, but Kenny works, I think 6 or 7 days a week.
7.
7. Yeah. Every day of the week. It's just really impressive that you keep
Yeah.
this like such diligent.
Well, I'm
schedule.
obsessed.
You are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think anybody who's successful has to be somewhat obsessed.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Damn right.
how is it going to happen? How? It's
Damn
not going
fucking
to.
right.
No.
Damn straight.
You have to be obsessed.
You
I
do.
agree.
I have a question for you though. Like when we so much obviously has changed over the course of your career. And when you look at young artists today, like, you were saying like, although you went to art school and you've had the ability over time to really just paint, like you haven't ever had to get a day job. Like, do you think that path exists for artists today of this generation? Do you think that there is given inflation and how much it costs to live, like do you think that that's even possible for an artist today to just be able to lock in and be able to do their art?
I do. It all depends on what kind of life they want to lead. I mean, if you want to live in New York City and get your own apartment, maybe
not.
Unless you had, money.
Family money, yeah.
Family money. So, but there are other alternative ways that people live. And there's materials that don't cost money. The creativity can come in. So people have to just open up their minds of it, like, oh, I can't do it because I have this limit. I don't have the money to buy art supplies or whatever the limit is.
There's a way.
Well, then what is available.
Right.
Well, there's, I don't know, whatever it is, it's everywhere. So maybe I can do something out of this material. So you have to always find ways that are available, because not everything's always going to be available, but there is always going to be something available that other people haven't looked at and thought about using. Either it's a material or an idea. Of course, an idea is more important than the material.
And it sounds like, too, like, to your point, when you are in a place of, when you aren't comfortable, sometimes the best ideas come from that. Sometimes the ideas that no one else is thinking of, the materials that no one else is thinking of.
Well, when there's limitations,
Totally.
it forces you it's almost easier in a way, because there's too many options.
Right.
You don't know
Too
what
many.
to do. So if you've like, oh my God, this is the only thing I can, okay, if there's only one path, there's a million ways to go in that one path. So I think that the idea of infinity is real, and every even idea has an infinity way to look at that one idea. When people I never have the problem was like, okay, do you ever get the block? And I'm like, no, I never had the block.
You've never had any sort of creative block.
Never.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How?
I don't know, because I don't think.
You
just
don't
do.
think.
You
You're in
just do.
flow.
I don't think.
You've had the most illustrious career. The sky's the limit. When future art historians look back on your work, what's the one thing that you'd like people to know or understand or take away from your work?
I'm sorry for influencing some really terrible artists.
Got it! There it is! There it is!
Finn.
Oh my God. Kenny, you fucking icon. That was the best way to end this
Jesse,
episode.
we need to get Kenny on a stage.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want him
Kenny,
to
do you want to do
stand
stand up?
I've done everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for
Thank you,
watching.
guys.
This has
This
been Night
is-
School. Thank you so much, Kenny, for
That was
joining
fun.
us.
Kenny.
Kenny.
You're
You
amazing.
were an
was
absolute
fun.
joy, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.